In Jonathan Kozol's Amazing Grace, Kozol used a different approach to portray the lives of the people in the Bronx. He used testimonies from real people, both children and adults. He hardly commented on his thoughts about what he encountered. Rather, he used the conversations between the people he encountered to give the reader a real view of what they have to go through. That way, the readers don't think the author is feeding them a biased view to force them to feel bad about themselves and lack of aid they provide to those in need. After reading Amazing Grace, I came to the realization that through oppression, by forcing the poor people to remain poor by taking their resources or funding away, people have no other option but to rely on faith to keep them going, and others in society have no clue about this side of them because only the dangerous side of them is portrayed. The poor have a greater notion of God and religion than the so-called proclaimed people that only assist them when it's convenient to them. This faith in their religion and belief that God will have something better for them in the afterlife is what gives poor people resilience and strength to keep on moving. With a personal connection, when I faced the struggle of having to live in one room with my whole family because we couldn't find a home, and the encounter of having to put up with bullying at school for the clothes I had to wear, since everyone else had designer clothes, I would always pray to God to get me through, and that was what kept me going. In the visual representation I created, I focused on the way the have and have-nots portray their religion. The have-not in this case, the boy on the left with no food, still manages to have faith that God will get him through his difficult situation. That is his way of showing how much faith he has. On the right, I created an illustration of a boy with the word hungry on his back, and a man standing next to him with the Bible, thinking that it is what the boy needs. At the bottom of each drawing, there is a quote that connects the drawing to the book. The quote reads, "How," I ask her, "do you keep yourself composed?" "I pray, I talk to God. I tell him, Lord, it is your work. Put me to my rest at night and wake me in the morning." This quote shows how a girl interviewed by Kozol relies on God to keep her going or composed, just like the boy in the illustration above. The second quote reads, "Who is this charity for?" In a way, it's for themselves, so they won't feel ashamed going to church to pray on Christmas Eve. Maybe they think this way they won't end up in hell. This other quote shows the way in which the haves have showed their attempts of helping out the have-nots, even if it is not exactly helpful and probably only beneficial to themselves. Upon reading this, I came to the connection with the article Domination and Subordination by Jean B. Miller. In the essay, Miller talked about how there's usually two groups in society, the dominant group and the subordinate group. The dominant group decides whether the subordinate group gets to have temporary or inequality or permanent inequality. In this case, mentioned in Amazing Grace, the people of the Bronx are entitled and forced to stay in permanent inequality, which is ensured by cutting out the funding that can help them. This forces the people to only rely on faith to get them through, since they see how slowly the dominant group becomes more dominant and leaves them out. Another article or essay that I also connected with was Media Magic, Making Class Invisible by Mancios. Most people are unaware of how serious the situation is in most areas of the U.S. Maybe we have a notion, but we immediately tie poor people to being dangerous, criminals, or other negative thoughts. This is mainly due to the media, as mentioned in Media Magic. In the book, Kozol mentioned that there was an area where there were paintings of nice buildings so that people driving by don't see the reality of the Bronx. This makes it impossible for the poor to get out of the established permanent inequality. So with this way of oppression and the complete disregard for the poor have no choice but to rely on religion in order to help them cope with the inevitable way of living their lives.